Welcome everyone to our virtual community forum. We're so happy that you're joining us tonight. I'm Kristen McNeil, Interim Superintendent for the Washoe County School District. We know how hard it is for many of you to make it to our events, but it's important for us to reach out to all of you. Some of you live far away, some of you might just be getting off work, and some of you are at home. Wherever you are, we're glad that you're here with us today. And we're glad that you're tuning in and participating in this very important discussion. Even though we're virtual and we can't see you, we want to make this as interactive as possible. So we're going to be spending the next hour answering your questions. And if we don't get to everyone tonight, I want to assure you that we'll be sure to follow up with your particular question to make sure that your question is answered. I'm going to turn it over now to our board president, Katie Simon Holland, to explain a little bit more about how tonight will work.
Thank you, Kristen. Good evening, everyone. I'm Katie Simon Holland, the president of the Washoe County School District Board of Trustees, and I'm joined here tonight by Trustee Andrew Caudill. And for the next hour, we're going to take your questions, and if you have a question for us, all you need to do is email it to questions@washoeschools.net, and staff is standing by checking that email, and they will read us the questions as they come in. And if you forget that email address, don't worry, because it should be scrolling at the bottom of your screen. We know that some of you have already emailed us your questions in advance, so we will start with those. Now I'll turn it over to Andrew Caudill.
Thank you. We want you to feel free to ask us anything about the district. We want to know what's on your mind. Whether you are a student or a family member, one of our staff, or someone from the community, please use this opportunity to ask us your questions. We have a handful of district leadership staff in the room with us tonight as well, and we may call them up at the microphone to provide more detailed answers. So we are ready to hear from you.
Great. Hi, everyone. My name is Samantha Fredricksen. I am staff here, and I will be moderating your questions this evening. And I'm going to go back and forth between questions that we are receiving in real time and questions that some people emailed to us in advance. So I'm just going to go ahead and start because I know we're all ready. So the first question is about special education. Are general education teachers trained how to teach students with special education or IEPs, specifically students on the autism spectrum?
So thank you very much, Sam. So we have a variety of supports and resources available for all of our students, whether they're in a strategies classroom or a comprehensive life skills classroom, a social intervention program. And luckily tonight we have our area superintendent, Ms. Jen Van Tress, who is also over special education, who will actually be able to go into a little bit more detail into what students are able to provide those supports for a strategies classroom and on the spectrum for autism. Hi, Jen.
Good evening. Good evening. Thanks for letting me join you tonight. Yes, we have several opportunities and supports for students who fall on the autism spectrum disorder. We actually have an entire department called our Low Incidence Department that provide direct support to any student with a diagnosis of autism. The staff, there are 6 of them, are available to come out and consult not only with the strategies classrooms or the CLS classrooms, but also with the resource classrooms, general education, help support IEP teams in making IEP team decisions, and help site administrators as well with how to work with our students with autism.
Thank you.
Great. And I wanted to also mention that we got several questions around special education, so I decided to summarize and kind of combine some of those questions. So that was a few questions addressing that topic. So the next question I will ask is one that just came in via the email, and that is, what is the plan going forward for employee raises?
So right now we're in active negotiations with all 5 of our employee bargaining groups. We hope to bring to the board settlement for a couple of our association groups, and I'm not sure if President Simon Holland would like to add anything, but we're still in active negotiations.
And the district did, this is President Katie Simon Holland, the district did commit to budgeting for the increases that the governor called for. We were one of the first districts in the state to do that. And so we are committed to ensuring that our employees do receive pay raises. The 3% that the governor proposed was for the biennium. So that's part of our negotiation, and that's mandated by statute that we negotiate those raises with our employees. So different employee associations will decide on different arrangements, but those will be coming back to the board probably within the next several weeks, we hope.
Thank you.
Okay, next question. What are the changes that we are making to our schools to prevent school shootings?
Great question, and it's, one of the topics that we take very seriously here in the Washoe County School District. We received a very substantial grant, thankfully, from the state to provide additional supports. We were lucky to get additional school police officers for our middle schools, around social emotional learning, and then trauma intervention supports as well. But I'm going to have our Chief of Police, Jason Trevino, be able to speak to the actual specifics around what we do in the Washoe County School District for that.
Good evening, Jason Trevino, Chief of Police. So some of the things that we've done here in the district, we've been very proactive for several years, long before the state actually started to get more involved with school safety. One of the things that we've done is we had an independent outside experts come in from the School Safety Advocacy Council to do audits of our district. And that was to allow someone with a fresh set of eyes to come in and see things that maybe we haven't been seeing, or that we were overlooking, or things that maybe we were taking for granted within our district. And we're happy to say that those audits have been very successful. We've learned a lot from them. And one of the things that we learned was, as far as school districts go, we're actually pretty far ahead of the curve from most districts in the country that our experts had worked with. But that obviously was a good starting point for us. We've taken their recommendations, we've implemented those things, we've continued to work on those things, such as single point of entries, secure perimeter fencing, updating all of our locks to newer style locks that allow them to be secured from inside the classroom. So those are some of the more physical examples that we've done. In addition to that, like the interim superintendent said, focusing on social emotional learning, we promote Safe Voice, which is an anonymous reporting app through the state of Nevada, and we've been very successful in receiving tips early on of potential problems throughout the district that allow us to proactively address those, get involved with those tips, get involved with those students, and make sure that that problem does not develop into something bigger. And so we've been very successful with the Safe Voice app as well.
And Chief, maybe you could talk a little bit about the visitor management system and some of the security features we've built into our new schools.
Absolutely. So one of the things that came out of the safety audits was a need for a visitor management system across the district, and that need was to be updated and to be modernized and to allow us to have access to the entire system across the district. So Lobby Guard was selected through the process through our purchasing department, and that's we've rolled that out through one of our areas so far. We're in the middle of an implementation in Area 2 right now, and what that does is allows us to have everyone that's coming into our schools be checked into the schools, and then it allows us to know exactly who's there, and then in the event of an emergency, we know who should be in the school and who maybe would have already left versus the old pen and paper or pencil sign-in logs that we used to have that weren't very accurate. And this also allows us to put flags and things like that on people who shouldn't be in our schools. Of course, our new schools are being built around safety in the forefront versus retrofitting our older schools. So some of the things we've had to do in our older schools, such as the single points, the secure perimeters, and the locks, as a retrofit process, we are actually building those into the new schools, and they've been designed around those and designed to function with security cameras and things like that from the very initial beginning of the building.
Chief, do you want to go into a little bit? We've had a couple of questions around our fire drills, and you all were proactive in changing because of some national incidences that happened around what that protocol is. And I know you all spent a lot of time with our principals and the schools on retooling what our fire drills look like.
Absolutely. I think, any of us that have been out of high school or been out of school for a little while probably all had the exact same fire drill experience. The bell went off, we all just got up and we walked out. That's what we did. We went to our pre-designated spot, and it was just, repetitive motion. And what we've done and what we saw as a problem was exactly that repetitive motion. We knew that we needed to be very proactive in these drills, and so we completely restructured it to where it's not just a bell goes off, we leave the building. We actually have a very active part now our employees play in those evacuations. They're looking, they're listening, and then they're moving, rather than just hearing the bell and moving. So, we don't like to get into a lot of specifics on exact procedures that we do, but it's very proactive now to where the adults are actually leading that evacuation, and they are being proactive, looking and listening for potential problems, and then they can obviously make decisions on the move if they need to divert to another location based on what they see or hear.
Thank you very much.
And we also want to thank our Safe and Healthy Schools Commission that has guided our audit, our assessment, and those are volunteers from the community that have great experience, and we really appreciate their partnership with us to help make our schools safer.
Thank you.
Okay, the next question that has come in real time is regarding school uniforms. Why do only certain schools require uniforms? The expense is increasing, and I don't believe a uniform is helping to improve my child's grades.
So we actually have an entire process around school uniforms, and it's a site-based decision, and schools cannot move forward with implementing a school uniform type process without a vote of the school, and that includes parent participation as well. So it's a very in-depth process. So not all of our schools have school uniforms. It is a site-based decision, but it is an inclusive decision to make sure that we have parents and students' input. We have our lead area superintendent, I believe, here in the audience. There he is. So I'm not sure, Dr. Parks, would you like to add a little bit around school uniforms?
Yes, Troy Parks, lead area superintendent. I would add that in the schools where we do have uniforms, if a parent is finding that cost is prohibitive, please reach out to the counselor or teacher or principal, because I know in that policy there is also the fact that we are not going to let any kid go without, and there are many different ways that schools are battling the costs of those uniforms. So I would encourage anyone to reach out to their school if they're having problems getting uniforms. I would add that it's also every 3 years, I believe, it is voted upon by the community. So if they have concerns, please get engaged for the next time that uniform policy is coming up.
I'd also add, Dr. Parks, don't we find that in the schools that have the uniforms that we have fewer behavior problems? We have fewer incidents of behavior that can be related to clothing, and that makes for a safer school environment and makes for better learning for everybody. Hasn't that been the case?
Yes, we do hear that, especially from our schools that have implemented uniforms. In addition to that, they're also able to identify, as we talked about, visitors, who should be on campus and who should not, based on uniform. And yes, there is data that suggests the discipline incidences at our uniform schools have gone down, kind of not being cognizant of everybody has the same uniform and same expectations, and so therefore a lot of those principals do report that incidences are going down in discipline.
Thank you.
Okay, the next question came in earlier, and we got a couple of questions about this topic, and this will be for the board. What is the board doing to ensure stability in the leadership position, given the recent track record in recent years?
Well, I'll start, and then I can have my trustee colleague, Andrew Cottle, join in. The board is now in a search for a new permanent superintendent, and we decided as a board to have that be an open, competitive search. In the meantime, we've been very thrilled to have interim superintendent Dr. Kristen McNeil step up. She has a many decades-long career with the district and was a teacher and worked throughout the district, assistant principal, worked in grants, chief of staff, and deputy superintendent. So she has a great knowledge of the entire district. We will work hard as a board to make sure that the choice that we make for superintendent is made for the long term, and that we choose someone that can be committed to our district and can be fully engaged and really a great participant not only in the school district but in the community. And we recognize that the school district is a major focal point for our community, for our region. It's important for economic development, and it's really important to parents that the district function very well. We're lucky to have great stability in our leadership now, and we will make sure that that happens going forward. Mr. Cotto?
Yeah, thank you. So being a newer member to the board, one thing that was important to me was to hear the community and what the community wants in this next individual lead our school district. And so that's why I do believe it's important for the board to take our time and get this decision right. We do have a lot of confidence in Dr. McNeil to lead us through this transition, and so we felt comfortable taking our time and taking the year to do the search correctly, because if the search isn't done correctly, we have to start over. I know I've heard from many members of the community on both sides saying, well, do a full search because just promoting up didn't work the last time. And the flip side, I've heard, why spend money on a search if you feel like you can promote up from anyone within the district? Well, it's very important that this board does a full search, and if anyone from within the district is chosen, then that individual has the full confidence of our board that they were the best person for the job, not the next person. And so I think it's very, very important that we do this carefully and do this with as much input as possible, and that is not going to be a very quick decision that will just be made out of emotion. So I feel comfortable with the direction that we're going.
And a follow-up question just came in regarding that, about hiring local. And so this person wants to know, why don't we hire someone local, like a principal, as the next superintendent? Every time someone has been hired from out of state, it's been bad for the district, according to this question. So do you have a response to that?
I would add that in addition to what Trustee Cottle has said, it's important that everyone recognizes that this was the best qualified person. And if it is someone from inside the district, that's great. We want to make sure that not only the community, but also the employees know that it was the best qualified person. And one of the things we've learned is that there are a lot of skills that are additional to being a great educator that are required to run the district. This is an almost $1 billion enterprise now. We have 8,000 employees. We are the largest employer in the region. So there are a tremendous number of things besides being a great educator that are required to be an effective leader of a $1 billion enterprise. One needs to understand labor relations. One needs to understand work with the legislature, work with the community and business leaders to make sure that we're preparing our workforce for the jobs that will be available. So there are a tremendous number of skills that are required that are not necessarily built into every principal's training. So we want to make sure that we are inclusive and it is open and competitive to anyone who wants to apply and can qualify. And that hopefully will be a person who stays with us for a long time. We have an intention that that person will be on board for the 2021 school year. And again, if it's a person locally, that's wonderful. And if it's someone from elsewhere, we'll be making sure as a team that that person is ready to serve and learns about our district quickly, and that we're all here to support that person.
Yeah, I think it's important that this person have the full trust and faith of the community. And any doubt that this individual was not the best person for the job is doing that individual a great disservice. So it's very, very important we have a full search and that we leave no stone unturned, and that is what we plan on doing over the next 6 to 10 months.
Okay, switching gears. We did have a question about our SHARE curriculum. And this person asks, what age group do we teach the topic of understanding and identifying with your gender?
So the Board of Trustees approved our SHARE curriculum, and that's a high school curriculum, and so that topic comes up in the high school curriculum. And currently what we're doing right now is the SHARE committee is starting to undertake looking at and reviewing the middle school curriculum. But right now, that particular topic, there are 6 lessons within the high school curriculum, and that particular topic is in the high school curriculum. But again, the committee is working now to put together for the middle school curriculum as well. And that goes to the SHARE committee, and then their recommendation comes up to the Board of Trustees for final approval. And we do have our Chief Academic Officer if she wants to add any additional thing, but I think I pretty much got the nuggets of that one.
Ms. Beiersdorf.
Good evening. Thank you so much. I'm Deborah Beiersdorf, and I'm the Chief Academic Officer. So I think I could add what SHARE stands for. Might be good information for folks. So SHARE is our Sexual Health and Responsibility Education Curriculum, and it's taught in grades 4 through 12, and parents and guardians must opt in or give permission for their children to attend SHARE lessons. And as interim Superintendent Dr. McNeil said, our high school curriculum changes to our high school curriculum were recently approved, and we have 6 lessons, and one of our lessons is understanding sexual orientation and gender. Our SHARE committee is made up of 9 members who represent parents and guardians and teachers and counselors and the religious community. And our trustees just recently at their meeting approved the addition of 2 non-voting student members who will represent our student advisory committee. So we're excited about the changes to our curriculum, and we will soon start on changes to our middle school curriculum.
Thank you very much.
Okay, next question is regarding school start times. And this question came in real time and is, when are you going to fix school start times? I think the start time can be very challenging, especially for families who work a traditional 8 to 5 schedule.
So I'll start and then I'll turn it over to President Simon Holland. So actually there's been some conversations nationally around school start times, and in fact California just passed legislation recently around school start times, and so we know that this topic will be coming up probably within the next couple of sessions for our legislature as well. But we know that there are pros and cons on either side regarding school start times, most notably for our middle school and high schoolers. But there's a lot to take into consideration. Within the Washoe County School District, for example, many of our students work after school, and so there's some need for some conversation around how that would impact a student's ability to work. Also athletics, clubs, students' types of activities. And then many of our middle school and high schoolers students are actually, they're actually caregivers for their younger siblings. And so we want to have a very robust conversation when this topic comes up around school start times. But I know that this is a topic that has been top of mind of President Simon Holland and the rest of the board for a couple of years. So.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. McNeil. And we do understand that it is a challenge particularly for middle schoolers and middle school families to get those kids off to school so early in the morning, and particularly in the winter. And we've got kids waiting at bus stops in winter conditions, and it's dark outside. And we also know that kids are also distracted at later hours now than they used to be in previous years. We know that a lot of our kids are on their cell phone, the middle school and high schoolers, till the wee hours. They have homework assignments to deal with. So we want to make sure that we are being sensitive to all of the issues that impact families and impact children that contribute to whether they are able to give their best in a learning environment. I personally hope that we can move the start times back for middle school at some point. Certainly all of those things that Dr. McNeil mentioned, work hours for children and extracurricular activities, which are really important to the growth of the whole child, are also impacted by our transportation system. We have thousands of miles of roads to cover, and to get I think we transport about 25,000 students a day. Mm-hmm. And managing getting those kids on routes that get them to school on time and not adding separate transportation systems for each school level, that can be a very expensive and daunting task if we were going to add separate systems. we're already struggling to find bus drivers and to be able to staff the routes that we have. So a lot of factors play into it, but we will be looking at it, and we do care. We are listening. We do hear. And I've spent a lot of time with middle schoolers over the last couple of years, and when we go into middle school leadership classes, that is absolutely the number one first question we are always asked is, when are you going to change our bell schedules? So we will be looking at it, but as Dr. McNeil said, it's really important that we take into consideration all of the factors that impact when kids need to start, when they need to finish school, and how much time we need with them during the day to be able to accomplish their learning, which is our primary mission.
Similar topic, I think we received a few questions about aftercare for students. Specifically, questions came in regarding why only some elementary schools have aftercare and others might not. And another question about sixth grade, now that it's joining middle schools, will there be any plans for after-school care for sixth graders who will be at the middle school level?
So we're very fortunate within the Washoe County School District to have some really fabulous partnerships. Many of our schools utilize the Boys and Girls Club. We have different types of private, nonprofit organizations that help us out for before and after school care. And so I would encourage our listeners to contact their school and find out if there is before or after school care. And it is something that I know our principals are very much in support of after school care. And also it's an extension a lot of times for enrichment activities. So we have a full department, 21st Century Learning, and our Team Up program. It's a grant-funded program. They encourage active participation through enrichment, but they also want to make sure that they're working with an alignment with the curriculum at that school so that it's very much aligned with what's happening within the classroom. But we do encourage a partnership program, and like I said, Boys and Girls Club is a shining example of that. Also City of Sparks, City of Reno, Washoe County. These are all organizations and entities that we partner with to make sure that we have quality quality care for our students.
Great. So we have another question that's come in real time from someone who would like a little bit more information about special education. And this person asks, what are your plans for improvement? The teachers who take on these challenging cases are not paid appropriately for the extra effort that they spend preparing and meeting with IEP teams. This person's son had a different case manager every year, and so she wants to know he wants to know what the plans are for the future.
And this actually came up during the time when we were putting together the Pathway to Positive Progress, a plan that looks at employee morale, looks at special education, just in particular for special education and the supports that we provide. And I know that Ms. Van Trest will add some detail, but I do want to say we are taking a look at some possible program aspects to where we can pay teachers on a stipend type basis for the additional support that they provide. One of the issues that we've heard loud and clear is that when we can't find a teacher to go in for an IEP where we have a vacancy, that we're using a substitute in order to fill that. But that puts additional burden on that particular case manager. And so we're studying that issue. It's a very important issue because we want to recognize the additional efforts that case manager and the special education team at that particular school is going through. IEPs take a lot of time to put together. A high quality IEP is extremely important, and so we want to make sure that we're recognizing the additional time and effort that the case manager and the teachers are putting into that. So we know that is an issue. Ms. Van Trest, did you want to add?
Thank you, Dr. McNeil. Yes, we are currently also working with a special education principal advisory task force that is looking into how we can better support at each site level, how to support the teachers writing those IEPs, finding the time, providing substitute teachers to help with the writing or help cover the classroom teachers while they're helping to write the IEPs, and also working with special education teacher groups to find the best way to help support them while they're facing this struggle.
And I just want to add for this particular parent, if she or he has concerns regarding their child's IEP, to please reach out to the principal, the LEA of that school, so that they can express what their concerns are. Each one of our schools has an implementation, an instructional coordinator, an IC, and that person works directly with the principal to make sure that matters are addressed appropriately for our special education students.
Great, thank you. We have another question about the superintendent search that just came in for the board. I'll let you answer this. Why not put the next superintendent candidates on a ballot and let the community vote as we vote for the board?
Well, I'll take that one. We will involve the community, and I think that's a very strong intention and an absolute direction of the board, that we will have a very inclusive process, and that will involve having the community help us define what are the leadership characteristics, what's the profile of the person we're looking for. And of course, in Nevada, when we get to the end of the process, we will have public interviews. We will have public meetings to interview the finalists, so people will be able to be here present for those finalist interviews and make public comment on the various candidates. We have not yet determined all of the details of the process, but I certainly, as one trustee, will advocate for having an opportunity for the community to meet the finalists. Not only members of the community, but also students and parents and staff members to be able to meet our finalists. Again, we haven't finalized what the process will be, but there will be a very transparent process, and people will have the opportunity to share and tell us what they think of the various finalist candidates. So while it's not a voting situation, and that is a matter of statute, who gets voted for in Nevada, we will certainly be very inclusive and are very determined to have the voice of the community and the voice of students and parents and employees heard in this process. Trustee Cottle, do you want to add anything?
Yeah, I'll agree with that. It's really important to involve our community. It's something that I will also advocate for. Not just open public meetings, but potential public Q&As, gatherings, just opportunities for the public to interact with this individual. Because one thing that I've heard loud and clear is the public wants a positive individual that will represent the district well and be a partner with our communities, because this person, whoever is chosen as our superintendent, is the face of the school district. The community wants this person more engaged with the media, more engaged with community functions, and so to find the right person for that profile is important to get them out with our community. And so now I would encourage the community to take this opportunity, because that is a two-way street. We really want our community to take the opportunity to be engaged and to really let us know what they want to see in the superintendent, and then when they see finalists, let us know what their thoughts are on who this next person should be.
Okay, switching gears now, the next question is another real-time question from someone watching. And this question is regarding school speed limits in school zones. What are the rules for school zone speed limits surrounding the school? And how do those speed limits relate to the walk zones? And how can school zone speed limits be extended?
We'll bring our Chief of Police up to comment on that.
Good evening, Chief Jason Trevino. So school zones are actually, we work with the local entities, so whether that's the City of Reno, the City of Sparks, or Washoe County, because those are public roadways, they're not owned or maintained by the Washoe County School District. So we work in conjunction with them to initially, when a school is built, our Safe Routes to School coordinator works very closely with their traffic engineers to look at the neighborhood, to look at the walking zone, to determine what the potential amount of kids are going to be walking to that school, riding their bikes, etc., how many inlets, outlets. It's pretty involved on how it comes down to what is actually ultimately decided. And one of the biggest reasons that a school zone will be designated either a 15-mile-per-hour zone or a 25-mile-per-hour zone, like say over by Mendive Middle School, where you have a 25-mile-per-hour zone, is if it's an arterial roadway. So if it's a roadway designed for a high flow of traffic, it's going to be a higher speed limit even when it's reduced. So it would be 25 versus 15 versus, say, a school that's in the middle of a neighborhood where you just have surface streets. It's going to generally be a 15-mile-per-hour school zone. We do work with them on school zones retroactively, so to speak. So a lot of times a school zone, when it was built, when that school was originally constructed, the neighborhood looks much different than it does now in 2019 with the growth in our communities. So we often work with those entities as well to take another look at those school zones and potentially extend them, which we're currently doing on a number of school zones to potentially extend them, or even possibly pick up some of the side streets that feed into the major streets around the school.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll take another real-time question. Why do you have so many area superintendents when you have a superintendent and a deputy superintendent?
So I'll take that one right
Okay.
now.
Okay.
So actually, our administrative ratio in the Washoe County School District is below national average with the amount of students that we have. We have 64,000 students. We have 5 area superintendents who manage approximately 20 schools per piece. One of our area superintendents, Ms. Van Tress, as you heard me state earlier, actually has 1 vertical of schools, and she's also overall of special education. And then we currently, we have the deputy superintendent, myself, is in the interim superintendent role. So at this point in time, we don't have a deputy superintendent. I'm doing the interim superintendent position as well as the deputy superintendent position, as well as the chief of staff position. So when we talk about looking at what our area superintendents are doing, they're supervising each one of their schools on an individual basis, and that goes to such initiatives as far as curriculum. We have a new ELA adoption. We have
English language arts.
English language arts. Thank you very much, President Simon Holland. Textbook adoption. We have different types of programs. Our professional learning communities initiative out there. And then also, very importantly, bullying protocols and bullying investigations. Takes a lot of time for our area superintendents, rightly so, because they want to do it the right way. And then also, every day our area superintendents are out in the schools, meeting with students, meeting with their principals, meeting with teachers, walking through the schools, solving day-to-day issues to make sure that our schools have that direct support. We actually, at one point in time in our school district, had 7 area superintendents, and through the years, through budget reductions, we've reduced that. But I felt coming into the interim superintendent role that some of our schools were not receiving that direct connection and that support that they needed. So we eliminated the chief student services officer position, and we hired a 5th area superintendent, which was a budget savings of approximately $16,000.
And again, I think it's really important to note there is a perception that we have a lot of administrators, more than we should. And actually, as Kristen said, we're about 28% below the national average for administrators per student. So we are well below. And as Kristen said, each one of those area superintendents has a responsibility of supervising about 20 schools, about 20 principals. And that means making sure that all of those things that you mentioned are being done, as well as employee issues, making sure that evaluations are completed, that we're managing the district well, that we're meeting our goals. When you look in the corporate world, and I come from a business background, you're getting into a very difficult level of span of control if you're trying to supervise 20 people well. And it's not just those 20 people, but it's 20 schools. We have 107 schools, 5 area superintendents, so that's roughly 20 schools per. There's a lot to do, and dealing with parents, making sure that parents are getting their questions answered, and that students are on track and meeting their learning objectives. So we are very proud of the work that our area superintendents do, and And they are very busy people making sure that we're responsive to the needs of our students, to our employees, and to our families and parents.
Okay, the next question that has just come in is very timely today. There was news of a whooping cough outbreak at Bishop Manogue High School. And so this person wants to know what plan is in place for something like this in our district, at our schools, to prevent it. Are there any requirements for students and staff to be vaccinated to help prevent an outbreak and protect others' health?
So we have a very robust student health services protocol with the Washoe County Health District. We have daily check-ins. So for example, a few years ago we had a norovirus outbreak, and through that process we were able to put into high gear protocols within each one of our schools. So for example, if a nurse or a clinic aide starts to see there's an uptick in the number of students that are calling out sick, they look for the reasons why, and then a health type investigation happens with the Washoe County Health District. We have very strict procedures in place as far as any type of outbreak, notifications to students, notifications to parents. But our system is very much tied to the Washoe County Health District, and we have a great working relationship with them to make sure that our students and our staff are safe within our schools.
Okay, the next question is one that came in earlier, and this is for Spanish-speaking families. Why is there limited help for Hispanic families regarding academics and school information? Not much is in Spanish, and yet the percentage is very high of our Hispanic families.
And I couldn't agree more. We have systems in place to where we provide interpretation services, we provide translation services. The majority of our documents are translated into Spanish and posted. We want to make sure that our families have access, and so we work with our communications team who translates those documents. We work with our chief academic officer and again our area superintendents to make sure that those documents are translated. And then, for example, our committees and our board meetings, we have interpretation services available. That's very important that we make those services available.
And what about our parent engagement facilitators? You want to talk about that a little bit?
So our FACE representatives within each one of our title schools, they work very closely with our parents. They speak with our parents. We talk about, they may, talk with our parents about upcoming activities within the school. Parent conferences are this week, so there was a lot of communication around parent conferences. Our FACE liaisons are a real tie to our families, and I would encourage our Hispanic population that if they do have questions to please reach out to our schools. We also have an entire department, our Family Schools Partnership Division, which takes family engagement very seriously. We're nationally known for our family engagement processes and protocols.
And I would just add, we always want to do better, and if there are specific things that individual who asked the question or anyone else has in terms of suggestions for ways we can better help our populations of families, we are very anxious to hear about that. We do have Spanish-speaking parent facilitators and really want to make sure that everyone feels welcome in our district, no matter what language is their first language. And we're very, very grateful for the engagement that we see from the families that come from the Hispanic community. Our parent university does a tremendous job of engaging our Hispanic families in Spanish language. So if there's more that we should be doing, we really appreciate and welcome the suggestions.
Okay, another question that just came in regarding PE training, or PE for elementary school students. Do elementary students participate in the CDC recommended 60 minutes per day of moderate to vigorous aerobic and strength training? If the students don't currently participate in daily physical activities, what is the district's plan to meet the needs of children's physical development?
So I'll start, and then I see our Chief Academic Officer back there and our area superintendent. But we do have physical education standards within our grade levels, and depending on which elementary schools. So thankfully, we just celebrated and just had our Run for Education, which is a huge event sponsored by the Education Alliance. And that allows us to develop grants, Kids in Motion grants. So several of our schools, many of our schools, will receive those types of grants to help with physical activity within the school. But those standards are Nevada standards, content standards around physical education. And we take, PE very seriously. Unfortunately, our budget does not allow us to hire certified PE teachers within our elementary school grades. We have it in middle school and high school at this point in time.
But we do make sure that it is integrated into the curriculum. And Deborah, do you want to comment, or Dr. Parks, do you want to comment on how we integrate physical activity into the curriculum?
Absolutely. Again, thank you, Deborah Beiersdorf, and I'm joined by Troy Parks, who's our lead area superintendent. I would be remiss if I didn't mention that our elementary schools participate in a soccer league as well, that our district supports with getting kids from school to school and being able to engage in soccer. We have schools that have volunteers that come in and work with students at all ages at elementary level. And then also individual teachers and grade levels also put programming together for students as well. We've got schools that are very creative in meeting the physical education needs of our students, but as Dr. McNeil pointed out, our budget's limited to put in a full physical education program, but we work really hard to do everything we can. And again, the Run for Education, great event that was held yesterday, will help go toward paying folks to come on in to help, or to buy PE supplies for our schools as well for recess. And I'll turn it to Troy. He may have some more information as well.
Yeah, so Troy Parks, lead area superintendent. What I would add is there are many ways that schools are meeting that requirement. One thing I've seen them often do is, while they don't have a teacher allocation to meet those needs, oftentimes when available, they have their PFA raise funds and they're able to hire classified people who can come in and serve as a PE teacher. I also see that a lot of our schools are getting volunteers that will also come in and run programs. And then they also, during recess, oftentimes will offer intramural activities where students are able to participate in co-ed intramural activities to meet those 60-minute requirements.
Thank you.
Okay, next question is regarding food allergies in schools. What steps is the board taking to prepare for complex or potentially controversial policy proposals, such as the food allergy proposal coming up on November 5th? What can the community do to support your efforts to make informed decisions?
Well, I'll address that. Just had an opportunity today to hear about some of the statistics around food allergies in our schools and the importance of making sure we're addressing concerns about anaphylaxis and allergic reactions. Nationwide, it's estimated about 1 in 13 kids has a food allergy that's serious, and that equates in our school district, and we do have known allergy protocols with about 5,000 students in our school district. And many of those children have accommodations that are specified in what's called a 504 plan. We are working on a policy that would promote the idea that sharing of food communally in classrooms is probably a danger to students. And so we're going to be working on developing a policy that discourages communal sharing of food. And many times it's just the most innocent thing. Kids are sharing a sandwich, or they're trading their peanut butter for your salami in the classroom. And we know that that's a real danger to thousands of our students. So avoid sharing of communal food. Working on encouraging folks to be more creative about other ways they can celebrate in their classrooms. There are non-food games and rewards that could be part of a party for a child's birthday or whatever. And then focusing on helping parents to learn that better alternatives are manufactured prepackaged foods so that we can see what's in the food. When we have something that comes from home, we can't always tell what's in that food and whether a child will have an allergic reaction to it. But with prepackaged foods, we can learn to have some labeling that we can interpret. So we're currently in the process of evaluating that. No decisions have been made by the board as yet. And as the caller mentioned, we will be looking at that policy on November 5th. We want to make sure that it respects the friendliness of the traditions of classroom parties while making sure that our thousands of children who may be at risk of death from an allergic reaction are protected. We do have EpiPens in every school, and our teachers and our staff are trained to use those. But really, the more important step for us now is to prevent if we can. So we are working in that direction, and we welcome community involvement and parent input so that we can balance the kids having a good experience at school and also everyone being safe. I don't know if you want to add anything.
I would just add, just very briefly, that we do encourage people to participate in a policy type format. There is a process for a board policy. This is on November 5th in front of the board policy. That is the very first step in board policy. There will come a time where there will be a 13-day public comment period, and we encourage participation through that. And then once a policy is finalized, we then go into what's called administrative regulation. So you have board policy at the board level, and the administrative regulations are more of the detail on how the board policy will be carried out, and that's at the superintendent level, and that gives direct guidance to our schools as far as how to implement the proposed policy.
And one thing I just wanted to add that I had really not understood until I did some more research today, but we actually know that nationwide a big problem in elementary schools for children who do have a food allergy is that they are bullied by their peers. And we want to make sure that not only is the environment safe for those kids that have an allergic reaction based on their physical needs, but we also want to make sure it's a safe environment for them emotionally.
Okay, so I think we have time for one more question, maybe two. We'll see how it goes. It's 7:22 right now. We want to try to end at 7:30. So I'll ask one of the questions that came in earlier, which is regarding the teacher shortage, and it's what are you doing about the teacher shortage?
So I see we have our Director of HR, Ms. Anna Savala. So I'll start off. Our HR department, it's not just an issue relegated to Washoe County. This is an issue, a teacher shortage is an issue within the state of Nevada. It's an issue on a national level. And so our HR department has gone to great lengths to do job fairs to make sure that we have ARL candidates ready.
Alternative routes to licensure.
Alternative routes to licensure. Thank you very much. But I just want to emphasize that this is a issue within Washoe County, but it's also an issue on the national level as well. So, Ms. Savala.
All right, thank you, Anna Savala with Human Resources. So I did want to reiterate, we do job fairs to help fill our teacher shortages. We do focus advertising to different markets. We also do direct outreach to candidates. Some of the long-term initiatives we have, like Interim Superintendent McNeil mentioned, is our alternative route to a licensure program, which allows teachers to come in from a different, that have not gone through a traditional teacher preparation program. We also partner with different colleges and universities to outreach and get those candidates in. We also have pipelines to build future educators as far as a We Teach program, which allows high school students to earn dual credit for teacher prep coursework, as well as our Grow Your Own Scholarship program, and that's for our ESP employees who are interested in becoming teachers, and it helps support them with their financial cost.
And we can add that how many vacancies did we start this year with? About 23 teacher vacancies. About 20, only 23 out of our 4,000 plus educator positions, which compares to the 700 teacher vacancies that the Clark County School District started the year with. So kudos to our HR team for really working hard to make sure that all of our classrooms have a qualified teacher.
Thank you. I think we can take one more quick question that just came in from someone watching, which is, what are we doing to ensure that there is a meal plan for low-income students?
Well, we do have our Chief Operating Officer, Pete Etchart, in the audience, and I'll just say we do a lot of communication to our families to make sure that they have all the access possible for lunches and meals within our schools. We never, ever want a child to go hungry at school. A lot of times we find that our students are receiving meals in school, and that's their main meal for the day, and that's very important to me. I know it's very important to Mr. Etchart, as well as what that communication is. So there's a very robust process through our Nutrition Services Department to make sure that families receive that notification. But Mr. Etchart, if you want to go into a little bit more in detail.
Can I just jump in before Pete, just to mention that the free and reduced lunch program that's funded by the federal government is very active here, and we do a lot of outreach to make sure that families who might qualify know about our free and reduced lunch program. And about 49% of our students are on free and reduced lunch, and we also increased the number of schools this year in which, because of the extent of low-income students in the school, every student gets a breakfast at the school without having to qualify, because it's important that those students have the food that they need to learn every day.
And lunch.
And lunch, that's right. Turn it over to Mr. Etchart.
So Pete Etchart, Chief Operating Officer. So absolutely, just everything you just said. This year we have gone from having 2 schools, what's called the Community Eligibility Program or provision, to 40 schools, which means that everyone in those schools eats breakfast and lunch for free. No applications, nothing. Every child eats breakfast and lunch for free. We hope to continue that program because our goal is to provide access to nutritious meals to every student in the Washoe County School District. And absolutely, if you qualify or have any questions on that, please reach out to your school, to our Nutrition Services Department, to make sure that we can get an application to make sure your student's fed.
I also just want to add, we have a very dynamic and a very robust partnership with the Northern Nevada Food Bank. They provide a lot of services, including food pantries in many of our schools, backpack programs, and so I just want to send out a shout out to our partnership with our food bank as well.
I think that's all the questions that we have time for.
We have 2 minutes.
2 minutes? Well, let's ask a question. One of the questions that came in earlier about our calendar. We had a couple of questions. One about kind of fall break and when that falls and why we chose this week. There was a suggestion actually to have it fall over Thanksgiving week to make it easier for parents to take time off. And another question regarding the length of the summer and why the board decided to, according to this person, not lengthen the summer.
I'll quickly talk about the summer vacation. We did do a very robust public involvement process. We had surveys. What we learned from research is that when you get after about 8 weeks of summer vacation, we start to see a decline in student retention. We also know that low-income students have a very much more difficult time. They don't have a lot of the enrichment activities that higher-income students do over the summer. They're not at the library. They're not having camp, and they're not on trips to various places. And what happens is lower income students may fall farther and farther behind. If they are out for an extended period over the summer, they've lost ground compared to their peers, and they are never able to make up that ground. So we compromised, and we made a 9-week summer, and we did shorten one of our spring breaks because of that, and then made it so that our students are all starting a week later than they were previously. I know we're just about out of time, but I did want to say the fall break, there's no perfect time for the fall break, and we want to make sure that teachers have enough time to get good content in front of their students, and also that there's enough time to finish after the fall break and get done before the winter. So I don't know if you want to add anything, but I know we need to close.
Yeah, I was just going to say very quickly, we do have a calendar committee that takes all of these types of ideas together, and that has teachers and principals and parents and students on that calendar committee as well.
So we want to thank everyone for the great questions. I think this was a great success, and I hope we will do it again. We look forward to hearing from you in the future, and we're very glad you were able to participate this evening.
If you didn't get your question answered tonight, someone will follow up with you this week via email and make sure you receive an answer. We know there are more questions than we had time for. We want to make sure that everyone who took the time to send us a question receives an answer from staff.
And I'll just say that all of the questions and the answers will be posted on the superintendent's website. So please, in a couple of days, please check that website out, and we'll have all the questions and answers for you. I just want to do a shout out to our leadership team members for staying late tonight, and I want to thank President Simon Holland and Trustee Caudell for being my partners tonight in our virtual forum. So thank you. Leadership team, drive home safely. The rest of you have a very nice evening, safe evening, and love your loved ones. Thank you.